So for any of you that watch this channel, I've been working out here for a few years or so, and I've never used a heater, mainly because since this is an old carriage house, it was pretty much siding, no insulation, and then the inside. So this wall here is actually facing west, so the sun doesn't hit my side of the shop till fairly late in the day, and it was actually usually colder in here even in the middle of the winter than it was outside. But this summer when I rearranged my shop, I took the siding down that was already there, I added new paneling and insulated the whole thing. So this winter my goal is to be able to make it at least 50 degrees in here. Paint and glue will dry at 50 degrees. It's somewhat comfortable and it will just make my life a lot easier. So my neighbor, I was talking to him one day and he said he had one of these. He had one of these older kerosene heaters that he got from someone else himself. He said he had never used it but was told it would work, and I was more than welcome to it. So I took the whole thing apart and cleaned it up, even though it still looks dirty. I wasn't going to spend a ton of time getting that clean. I was getting the internal components clean, and I noticed it needed a new wick. I've actually been running it with the old wick just to have some heat in here, because since this is an older model, I couldn't just go buy the wick. I had to special order it, mostly because my design uses these little tabs right here. And I'm going to show you how to replace the wick on a heater like this, mainly because there's already a lot of really good videos on YouTube showing you how to do that, but not necessarily for my model, and they're all a little different from what I've watched. I've also learned the proper way to take it apart before I took all of this stuff off the cage, the top, all of that, and in actuality it's much easier to take apart than that. So I'm just going to show you how to break it down and change out the wick. Now this is a model, it's a Corona 23 DK, and you need those marks in order to buy your wick. There's a lot of websites online that will show you what brand of wick will go with older models, and you could cross-reference different sizes that way. So by having those numbers, I was able to order this replacement wick, which comes with instructions, but right on the front it will tell you which models it fits. First things first, in order to take this entire top part off, my model has 2 screws on the side. You can pop those off and most of this will lift right off. The knob simply pulls right off. Before you start this, they recommend running it to empty, which mine is, and the directions actually say to siphon out any kerosene still left from the reservoir. I'm not going to do that. I just ran it to empty, and that's good enough for me. I can't speak to newer models, but as you can see, this older model is super simple to take apart. And if I pop that knob back in place, and bring that wick up, you could see just how damaged it is. It's in really bad shape. He's had this sitting, I think, for at least 2 years, and whoever used it before then did not replace the wick before they gave it to him, so it needs to be replaced. And the wick will cut down on changing out the wick will cut down on the amount of smoke that is emitted from this when you light it. When I actually first lit this, from it not working for so long, black smoke came out of it for a good 5 minutes, and it will also make your entire machine more efficient with a new wick. For a kerosene heater, I've used kerosene heaters before, I've noticed with this old wick, the heat output is not super great. So by replacing all that, you not only will get better efficiency, but it's just safer to use, because I am in a closed space and there's still enough drafts in this whole thing to not have to worry about asphyxiation, but it is something to consider if you're using an older wick. So the next step is going to be taking out these wing nuts. Mine has 4, and like I said, I've already taken this apart, so mine are pretty easy to get. If yours is really old and rusted, this might be something that's smart to spray with some liquid wrench the night before so that everything's ready to go when you need it to. Now at this point it's a good idea to put gloves on. You don't want to be touching the kerosene. Then from the inside you could just pop this out and throw it away. This model's a little more difficult than ones I saw online, and I have actually taken that older Wick out because I thought that I could get a replacement the day I discovered I needed a new one, and I ended up having to put it back in place, which is how I know how to do this. So this little sleeve that sits on the inside with the teeth is going to have to be pulled up closer to the top. And then there's 3 little grooves in the side. You could see them hopefully on here. And if you rotate your knob in order to raise that, you'll see a little hole appear. There's the little hole. So in those 3 swerves, there's the other one over there, and there's the other one over there, is the hole. And that little hole, you can see it move the more I raise the knob, is where these 3 tabs of my Wick have to go in. So the way that I found it was easiest to do this was to kind of put this on its side. You have the weight for your shutoff that's there, so if this tips over, the weight will shut off your, if it's set and the weight, this tips over, the weight will shut off your kerosene heater. It's a safety mechanism. The only problem with that is in order to do this, you usually have to kind of hold this knob in place and get those tabs in there. You couldn't really see it before, but this sleeve with the teeth on it also has holes. You could see them down there in the bottom. And those holes have to also line up with these sleeves and the holes you're sticking it through. So you kind of have to hold this in place and raise that knob to do this, which is what makes it a little difficult. So I don't know how well you could see that, but you could see I have the sleeve in place, the holes in place, and what I'm doing is once it's in place, I'm holding the knob to the bottom so that it can't move while I place everything in place. If you let go of this knob, that inner sleeve will slip and everything will become misaligned. Once you get one of those tabs in, it's a little easier to get the other ones in. So I'm not going to move this around too much because I've learned that these are pretty finicky. But I put that bottom one in when it was on its side holding that knob, and then there's little teeth in there, and if you slowly press this on there, you could get the other 2, and then you could press this whole thing in. And you could see I let go of the knob, so this whole mechanism sunk down into the casing. So once you have that, you could slide it back onto your heater. So I've kind of learned with this model, before putting it on, you should be raising this Wick up to about there and then sliding it on. I don't have instructions for this, but if you put it on when it's completely at the bottom, it won't work once it's in place. So lift it up to about there, and you have to hold that knob like that, and then you could slide it on. You can see I let that knob go and the Wick went back inside. You obviously want to line it up back with these screws, but you can see that it's a tight fit, but it should slide on there fairly easily. If you're having to shove this on there, something's wrong. You're not doing it right. But if you have all those knobs in there, and like I said, it does take a little bit of time. The first time I did this, I was messing around with it for a good 20 minutes before I could get back in there. But now that I know those couple little tricks, this one was much easier. And then once again, having that lifted to the top before you slide it on, otherwise it gets jammed on the bottom. So now I can depress my safety button and see if that wick will raise and lower. If it doesn't, something went wrong and you'll have to take it apart. So there it is, fully risen. That looks good to me. You can see when you press your button, it goes all the way down, but can easily be raised. There's no resistance whatsoever, and that's good. So I'm going to put my cage back on. Well, I'm going to put the wing nuts back on, then put my, I don't even know what this is called, this assembly back on, and then the cage, and then fill this with kerosene. I filled up the tank, and the instructions and everything I saw online says to wait at least 60 minutes before you try lighting this, or you'll actually ruin the wick, and that would be pretty upsetting. So luckily it's fairly late in the day, and I'm just going to let this set overnight and fire it up tomorrow. So I've let this set overnight, and now I'm going to start it up with that new wick. And I've been using it with the old wick, I think, for about 4 or 5 days, and I've been tracking the temperature I've been gaining over the course of the day. And in the morning when I first lit it up, I was gaining about 1 degree every 10 minutes. So after an hour or so, I'd only gone up about 5 to 6 degrees, which isn't terrible. It's definitely better than what I had out here before, but I'm hoping that this works a little more efficiently and gets it to an operating temperature in here at least twice as fast. So I've only had this lit for about a minute or so, and it's already a nicer flame and a more consistent flame than I would say took about 15 minutes with the old wick. So there's diagrams. I still have a diagram on the base that will show you how to set your flame. I have this one set about mid-range, and I'll see how fast the temperature rises in here. So this is the first kerosene heater I got from my neighbor. I've been using this for probably 2 or 3 weeks. After replacing that wick, it's definitely much more efficient. It's been heating up my shop really well. I could easily get it to like 45 or 50, and it's almost January, and January and February are the coldest months around here, so I think I'm going to be okay. The nicest thing is with the insulation, I've been able to keep my shop above freezing, and that's just a huge time saver. In past years, I've had to take all of my stuff that can't freeze, all my paint, my poly, my glue, and store them someplace warmer, and it was just a real pain in the butt. So that's actually a huge convenience. This is the heater. I think I mentioned this earlier in the video. I can't remember, that I got from my brother-in-law's parents, and this was new in the box. They weren't using it and said I could. There's the box over there. It's a Kerosene. It's much newer than the one on the other side. And this one I'll probably use both of them first thing in the morning. I'm probably going to put this one over here, and then once I get it to temperature using 2, I'll turn this one off and only use it if I need to. I'll probably make a portable base for this one so that I could move it around my shop and put it in spots where if I'm painting over here and I need that to dry more, I could put that one over there. But I just wanted to show you the nice thing about these kerosene heaters is that even though this is a newer one, the basic design is exactly the same. In order to take this case off, I just had to remove these 3 screws from the side of it. It popped right off. There's 4 wing nuts to take to access the wick, which is exactly the same as the other one. And I just wanted to show you this wick doesn't have the tabs like my other one, and I believe these ones, just from videos I've seen, are easier to replace than the other ones. And this is a brand new wick, so I'm not going to replace it, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like. So it comes out the same way, and you can see there's no tabs. So this version just sticks in there. You could see these little teeth. These little teeth hold everything in place. The only problem with that one is you have to line up the top perfectly for where you're putting it. The nice thing about the tabs is even though they're harder to install, the alignment's easier because the tabs go in right in those holes. But once you get this lined up with where it should be at the top of that slide, it's pretty easy to use. So those are the 2 kind of different wicks that I've seen. There might be more, but I think it's either going to be this one with the teeth that grabs or the tabs. The new heater in place, and I've been using it this morning. It's working perfectly. This one is definitely more efficient than my other one. It burns hotter. Even just standing around it in my shop, you could feel the heat more than the older one. And it also, just from what I've been seeing this morning, is going through fuel less fast. So this is definitely going to be my everyday user, and the other one I'm only going to fire up when it's really cold in here in the mornings, which is going to be happening more and more as we get more into January and February. So it's actually only, the high today for some odd reason is supposed to be over 60 around here, so I'm probably going to turn this off pretty soon and potentially even open my door, let that warm air in.